we went out the first morning. I always remember the whole situation was cool, but what I loved about this hunt is this really unique blind the guy that I sat with had. He called it the bunker, and it was made out of concrete into a hill, and he put a furnace in it. So like 2 days before we got there, he had the furnace running to warm up like the concrete bricks and stuff. So it was like 10 degrees. It's, UP opening morning. We go out there and it's 68 inside the blind. Within 2 minutes, I'm in my long johns. And then we shoot a decent UP 8-point, like a little 14-inch wide 8-point or something, and like shoot the buck. He runs and falls over. It's this big brute, big bodied buck with little antlers, kind of classic UP. And then he pulls out this griddle thing not long after that, hooked up to the furnace. So we got this dead buck laying out there. It's 68 degrees, and he's like cooking, I can't remember, fried bologna sandwiches or something in the blind. I'm like, all right, this guy's got it figured out. This is pretty cool.
What's up, guys? It's Hutchie. Another episode of the Deer Camp podcast. This week, we have my friend Jordan Browne of Michigan Outdoors. And if you don't know who Jordan Browne is, you got to be tuning in on Thursdays to PBS and check out their show, man. And if you're from Michigan, you know that. But if you're not, check them out, man. It is I think, one of the longest running hunting shows out there. Hunting, fishing, it covers it all. It's a great show. Check it out. Michigan Outdoors, Jordan Browne. Hope you guys enjoy.
All right, we're back. Another episode of the Deer Camp podcast. This week we have my friend Jordan Browne. Jordan, how you doing today, man?
Good. It was like 48 degrees this morning. Felt like fall. Got a bunch of trail cameras out yesterday. I'm doing great.
Oh, it felt bucky this morning, that's for sure.
Yeah, it did.
Did you anything show up on your cameras last night?
Not much last night. I had a couple of regular cameras out. I pulled all those yesterday, and it's a little bit disappointing, but it's always tough in the summer. I feel like you get more excited than you should, and if you don't get anything, you're like worrying about where a buck might be. But no, it was a little slow the first few cameras I pulled, but I'm not too worried about it.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we got lots of time, right? We still got a little over a month before season starts, and other than the youth hunt and the early doe, do you participate in either of those at all?
No, my kids are not quite old enough. My oldest is 7. She's starting to inquire about a little bit, but we're not. She's a couple years away, I would think, at least. So, and then the early doe, I don't know. I've never done it, to be honest. I like shooting them late. I don't know if it's the best from like a management perspective, but I love hunting them in the snow with a bow, like that late December. And down here now we have the January season. I'd much rather be out there when it's cold and snowy chasing them than shooting them when it's 75 degrees out. This doesn't work for me.
I agree with you 100%. Only because you got so many factors going against you. It's hot. You got to get on them right away, take care of it. I mean, yeah, I agree. I agree. Well, I wanted you to come on tonight just basically so we could talk about your whole deer camp experiences. I see you right now. You're sitting in your family's deer camp. Let's hear a little history on that.
Yeah, so this is actually I guess my deer camp now. We've owned this property for about 3 years. This deer camp's been here for a long time. I know they kind of redid it in like the 70s. I'm not sure how long the original establishment was here before. A long time before. I used to bow hunt this property for a long time, and I'd always stop in here on opening day of gun season, see how the guys did. And there was always people back here and a little buck pole outside. So I've been coming to this deer camp for probably 20 years or close to that. And then we've owned it for the last 3 or so, and I've kind of started making a few traditions. My opening day experience is probably pretty unique from most people. I'm almost always at somebody else's deer camp for the opener, and the nature of the job with Michigan Outdoors, we're almost always covering somebody else's camp. So even growing up, I didn't really have access to like a good camp situation. So for me, it's always been about other people's camps, other parts of the state, seeing how other people do it, and not so much about my personal camp. But we're kind of trying to start that here a little bit.
Okay. What kind of traditions are you guys trying to start for your camp there?
So it's a little unique because we don't gun hunt very much. So trying to like kind of build up the opening day thing, even though we're either, have spent most of bow season targeting a buck and maybe have already killed that buck, or, not super excited about necessarily going out and gun hunting, but the camp part of it, trying to do like the night before the opening day. We've got this camp is probably I don't know, 16 by 12, or it's a little camp, but we've been making an effort to actually sleep out here too, which has been
Okay.
fun. My uncle and I, the last couple of years, last year we had my grandpa out on opening day. We couldn't convince him to sleep in the cabin. He's 89. So he wasn't going to sleep out here, but he did come hunt with us opening day. So I've, like, personally, I haven't even gun hunted back here since we've owned the property, but
Okay.
I've made an effort to every year. Like the first year we had it, I sat with my uncle on opening morning and he shot a nice buck. Last year I sat with my grandpa. He shot a buck on opening morning. My wife shot a buck one year. So I've kind of made it more about like, who can I get involved in that camp setup, spend some time with, still enjoy all like the gun season stuff. I just don't really, do a lot of the actual gun hunting, but I love the camaraderie, the camps, and I think seeing so many cool camps over the years really makes I kind of high expectations for what I hope our camp ends up like. But we're just getting started.
Heck yeah, that's awesome, man. Yeah, it's gonna be something your kids are gonna enjoy for years. I know, like that was like my favorite thing growing up was going to deer camp. We went to one up in northern Michigan. I still could go, but it's just too far away from my house now because it was just a social camp. Really, it was you go there for dinner. You wouldn't. No one stayed at it, but
Yeah.
it was. I couldn't wait to be a dog pushing deer. You know, back in the day when you actually used to push
Oh
deer,
yeah. Yep. I
crawling on your
remember.
hands and knees and all that good stuff. Um,
Yep.
You've been to some pretty sweet camps, I'm assuming, over the years.
Hmm.
What's some that stick out in your mind for like a fancy luxury end to like a rustic, bare bones kind of deal?
Yeah, I've been to about every kind of make and model of deer camp over the years. There's always a couple that stick out to me, kind of for different reasons. One that it's been about. I should try to go back to this one. It's been about 10 years. It was a camp I did in the UP. And
Okay.
I can't remember if they were all pastors or if they were all just associated with the church. I think they were all pastors, if I remember right, like five pastors that got together to hunt. So as you can imagine, a little bit of a different deer camp experience, a lot less alcohol and a lot less late nights, but very cool in its own right. At like a rustic old cabin that was like 100 years old that had some family history there. And we went out the first morning. I always remember the whole situation was cool, but what I loved about this hunt is this really unique blind the guy that I sat with had. He called it the bunker, and it was made out of concrete into a hill, and he put a furnace in it. So like 2 days before we got there, he had the furnace running to warm up like the concrete bricks and stuff. So it was like 10 degrees. This, UP opening morning, we go out there and it's 68 inside the blind. Like within 2 minutes, I'm in my long johns. And then we shoot a decent UP 8 point, like a little 14-inch wide 8 point or something, and like shoot the buck. He runs and falls over. It's this big brute, big bodied buck with little antlers, kind of classic UP. And then he pulls out this griddle thing not long after that, hooked up to the furnace. So we got this dead buck laying out there. It's 68 degrees, and he's like cooking, I can't remember, fried bologna sandwiches or something in the blind. I'm like, all right, this guy's got it figured out. This is pretty cool. The whole thing was just very unique and different, and it was in a cool part of the state, which always helps. So um, that one always, I mean, man, there's been a lot of cool ones. I mean, most of the ones I've been to, I would go back to again in a heartbeat. They're cool in their own way. But there was another one I went to, kind of in central Michigan, so not as cool of a location. But this camp, nice camp, and they had like, I think they owned like 120 acres or 160 acres and had access to more, like pretty good chunk. But they had 14 kids in this family, all boys.
Oh wow.
So yeah, so I get to this camp. There's 14 boys at the camp. It was a riot, all the way from like ages 21 to 2 or something. But like 10 of them were hunting, so that was pretty cool. And they shot like 4 or 5 bucks the first day, and over the first 2 days that I was there, and just boys running around all over the place. I mean, you never hear anybody having 14 kids, but let alone 14 straight boys. It was that whole, I'll never forget that one just because it was so unique. But yeah, I've been to a lot of cool ones over the years, done some more rustic ones, done state land in Northeast Michigan, like Hubbard Lake area. That was a cool one. Done a couple different ones in the UP. I did one a few years ago, like a mile from the Indiana border,
Oh,
all the
okay.
way in like very, very southern Michigan. And it was a real cool camp. So it was, and it still had like if you didn't, you realize where you were, it felt like a northern Michigan deer camp. It's like a log cabin. It's off the beaten path. And so I think that's one thing I've learned, like deer camp can really be anywhere. I used to always associate it with Northern Michigan or the UP, and you can have a great deer camp anywhere.
Yeah, I mean, it can be in the back of a pickup truck, camping in the back of
Mm-hmm.
a pickup truck to staying at Motel 6 if it needs to be.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What food wise, man? You've probably seen some pretty good food at some of these camps. Like, what's a meal that sticks out?
That's a good question. It is funny how it goes from camp to camp because some guys are like total necessity based. They're like, we'll hammer some hot dogs after we get back from the blind and we'll all go to bed. And then other guys like food is the deer camp. Like that's what
Mhm.
they're most passionate about is doing foods. Like you're coming back and there's like ribs and there's steak and there's like all this stuff. Trying to think if there's one that really sticks out for like a particular meal. Man, I've had some good ones over the years. Probably not. I can't think of one particular meal. We've done the fresh backstrap thing. Several different camps I've been to have done backstraps on opening night. Like that's always, especially if you're doing like a fire setup, it's like it's about as good as it gets. So a lot of that. Trying to cycle through. I think I've been to. I was trying to think about this before we got on here. I think I've been to 13 different camps. I've been doing it for 15 years, but the last couple of years I've filmed at my camp. So yeah, I think I've been to 13 different ones over the years.
Okay. Are you trying to stay more centrally located now that with your, kids getting older and all that?
Yes and no. I still love. I mean, it kind of just depends on the opportunity. Like if someone called me with a deer camp that just seemed super cool or was in a really unique spot, or like I'm a sucker for a UP setup. If someone had a good UP setup, I'd still go. Just the last couple of years, the first year was the first opening day that we owned the property, and I kind of wanted to stick around home and start that. And then last year when I talked to my grandpa about going, and he kind of was on board with that. How many more opening days am I going to get with a guy that's pushing 90? So that kind of took priority. So I'm sure, probably in all likelihood this year I'll be at a different camp, but I definitely want to, kind of keep the tradition going around here. And even if I'm not necessarily here on opening day, if I'm up filming somebody else, that somebody's here and I can have a little camp to come back to once I'm done working.
Okay. I mean, so you're being that you're, more of a bow hunter, the being not the guy behind the trigger on opening day isn't a big deal to you then at all, I'm assuming.
It'd almost be weird if I was the guy on the trigger. Honestly,
Okay.
I mean, I've like said, I've been doing work for the show for 15 years, and even when I was growing up, I didn't have a lot of access to good firearm spots. When I was younger, it was I won't say easy, but it was easier to get bow hunting permission than gun hunting. So all the access I had was knocking on doors to bow hunt. And so once gun season hit, honestly didn't hunt much until like December when the gun hunters were done. I could come back in. So kind of the way my, set up from a young kid to, not having any property when I was younger to no private property. And I did try the state land thing a few times in Southern Michigan. It was kind of a nightmare. Um, and so I just kind of got out of it and I started working for the show and that just became always a filming day. So honestly, I think back to a lot of those hunts, especially the successful ones over the years on the opening couple days, and yeah, I don't think it makes that big of a difference to me. I mean, I have all those memories I can remember like vividly. This guy shooting a buck on 8 point on state land on just right by Hubbard Lake there. I think it was 2013. I mean, he pulled the trigger, but I was there for the whole thing. And it was like, we got it done on state land and it was a decent 8 point. And like, we're sitting in this huge tree overlooking a swamp. And like, I'll never forget that, so I don't have the horns on my wall, I guess, but it wouldn't have made that big of a difference to me either way, I guess is what I'm trying to say. I still like the whole experience. It doesn't really matter to me who's behind a gun.
Okay. That's really admirable and fair of consumption there. I mean, I'm just getting to that point of my kids are getting old enough to where I'm not going to be the trigger guy and I'm going to be the habitat guy and I'm going to make everything good at home and then they're going to take the rewards of it. But I'm excited for that part of it as well.
Yeah.
Any bad ones that you've been to that were just like, I mean, you got there and you were like, man, this is this is not what I thought I was getting into.
I don't think so. I have a fairly thorough vetting process for like the opening day segments because we get a lot of requests. So it's not like I'm just showing up at Joe Blow's house with not much. I'm usually talking to these guys 2 or 3 times before I show up there. I have a pretty good idea what the camp looks like, what they've killed in the past. And like I said, it doesn't have to be a fancy camp at all. It could be tents in the middle of the woods, just so I kind of know what I'm going into. And for us, like when we're putting this segment together, the camp is a huge part of it. So we want a camp atmosphere and obviously a successful hunt. But to us, it doesn't really matter if that's a 120-inch buck or an 80-inch buck. It's just like, hey, are you guys killing a few deer at camp? That's really what we care about. We don't really care if you're shooting a 6 or an 8-point or, a 160. Sometimes it works out, you get the big one, and other times not. But we're just trying to go with somewhere that has a good camp atmosphere and a reasonable chance of success. That's kind of how we approach them.
Okay. So you guys don't have anything set in stone for this year yet?
I personally do not. No, I had one guy reach out to me with a camp that sounded pretty awesome in Northwest Michigan, but we haven't spoke about it since. So,
okay.
Yeah, nothing set in stone yet.
Okay. What about bow camps? You got it. How many of those have you been to over the years?
I feel like they're getting more and more popular. We actually do a little bow camp at my family deer camp, which I was never kind of on the young side to gun hunt there, even if I would have been able to. It's up by Ludington, so I never went there for gun season. But as soon as I got old enough to drive, we started doing like a little bow camp up there, and we try to do it every year, but you know how that goes. We probably do it every other year at this point, but super fun. The deer hunting is not great. I actually usually take my dog and duck hunt when I'm up there, but the bow camp itself is awesome. And of course, been to Kevin's deer camp quite a few times. Been to several other smaller bow camps around the state. I think it's the same guys craving that exact same thing they get from firearm season. Like, hey, can I get 3 days with the boys? Basically, can I go out and have a fire and not worry about anything, but just getting up and finding a place to hunt or chasing a buck. Like, I think, especially now, like the way bow hunting has kind of progressed, I think it's just another excuse to try to have that twice a year instead of just once.
Yeah, I kind of prefer the bow camps now, just for the fact that it's pretty nice out when you're at that first part of October of at a bow camp rather than the middle of the snow, which I do like the snow too. Don't get me wrong, but
yeah, it makes everything a little easier though. The warmer weather for sure.
All right, what if you're not at a deer camp? What's your favorite other thing you do for the show, for like content?
Oh, that's a loaded question. I of course love the deer hunting. I love filming turkey hunts. Turkey hunts is another one of those things that like I could care less about pulling the trigger. I mean, I like shooting turkeys. I love to eat wild turkey. So I always hope my wife gets one or I get one or we get a couple. But those hunts, I mean, if you're part of a good turkey hunt, you got all the fun stuff, it's like hearing one goblin strut coming in. Visually, they're very appealing and a lot of times. And so I always like those. I'm pretty partial to like research-based stuff too, conservation type, maybe more so than anyone else that works at the show. I really think that stuff's interesting. I actually just wrapped up like 10 minutes before we got on here, a segment on coaster brook trout in the UP. And it's trying to figure out kind of what's going on with the coaster brook trout, which is essentially a brook trout that leaves the river, goes into Lake Superior for a while, gets big, comes back. Used to be a huge fishery in Michigan historically for centuries, really, and is now basically gone. So they're trying to figure out the reasons behind that. That kind of stuff to me is really intriguing, like bear den research. I've done a bunch of stuff on the predator prey in the UP, deer traps, wolf traps, all that stuff. Like I'm fascinated by a lot of that. So I really enjoy doing those.
Okay. Yeah, we did a deer camp. Actually, kind of Kevin put it on, and we took our boys this spring, which was that was a wild turkey camp. Let's just say.
Oh boy.
Oh man, the boys had a great time. I can tell you that much. But yeah, just getting out into the camp. I don't know. It's amazing to watch these kids get to camp and like not worry about their tablets or anything like that, and just be kids. I mean, they can be kids at camp.
I'm glad you brought up turkey camp because I've done quite a few of those too. And yeah, almost preferable to a deer camp situation because the weather's nice. You can take breaks and there's no stress behind really killing a turkey. Like if you mess up on a turkey in the morning, you're like, shoot, well, we'll get him this afternoon or we'll get him tomorrow morning. If you miss a buck, it's like I could ruin your deer camp or at least ruin your night. I've done a couple of one family deer camp in particular. I've actually done their deer camp once, and I've done their turkey camp a couple of times, kind of the central part of the state, the Doyle family, and really cool atmosphere and a laid back spring. You hunt hard in the morning, and then if you want to go out in the evening, you can, but you have that whole day, same thing. Just guys making an excuse to get together and hang out and, you know, do all the stuff that guys do at deer camp.
Hey guys, Al here, Vitalize Seed. I hope you all are doing well. So we got a lot of new things happening at Vitalize this year, and I wanted to highlight some of those. First off, we got a brand new website. We just added a chat feature to that website so you can get your answers to your questions in real time or as fast as possible. Those actually come directly to us, so we can answer those questions, as well as has some auto answer features for those frequently asked questions. So trying to further increase the customer service that we offer. Number two is we are offering bundles now. So we got a lot of questions about people trying to piecemeal things together. So we took the guesswork out of it for you. You want a fertility bundle, add that to your cart, and it gives you all of our natural fertility products in one place. We also are adding bulk pricing. So been asked about this in the past, and we've done some, kind of one-off things. But for those people who are buying, 5, 10, 15 acres, depending on the product, we're going to be offering some bulk pricing options for that. So right now we got that up on Nitro Boost. We also are going to have that up for the Clover, Chicory, and Oats offering, and might expand that to other offerings as well. Other things are new products. So we got our annual Clover. That's a fantastic product for frost seeding and also for this early spring, especially for those who still want to plant Nitro Boost. They want to get that annual Clover established. You could go in and drill your Nitro Boost right through, broadcast through it, mow it off, spray it off, etc. We got our Premium Clover Plus. I'm using that on all my logging trails. That's a fantastic product. I'm also using that often with our Clover, Chicory, and Oats mix. So I might use Clover, Chicory, Oats in the first year on my logging trails like I did last fall. Let those oats come in, they'll die off, and then I can frost seed my Premium Clover and Chicory over top of those trails now. So those are areas where I want a perennial crop growing. So I'm using that mix. And then we added our brassica mix as well. We, of course, have our seed feed and seed armor. Those are selling fantastic, and various other products, guys. So please check us out at vitalizeseed.com. We sure do appreciate you, and we're looking forward to a fantastic 2025.
What's your favorite thing to cover other than the NRCS or the conservation stuff, like fishing wise or anything like that?
Kind of a sucker for trout fishing. I think you're always kind of partial to stuff that, like, I grew up trout fishing because I didn't have a boat, didn't have access to a lake, but we had streams close by, and I lived on a trout stream when I was younger, so I could wade and catch trout. And I can still remember the first brown trout I caught on a bread ball because I didn't know any better. I taught myself how to fish and taught myself how to hunt for the most part. So I didn't, but the first trout I held in my hands, this is the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and part of that has never left me. So visually, if I can go film somebody fly fishing for trout or steelhead, and they just look so cool, and the spots that they live are so cool that I'm kind of partial to, trout fishing. A lot of it is like what else is behind the story. I could do a pan fishing story that I loved if it had like a cool storyline, or if it was with somebody really unique or doing it in a unique way, or maybe we were wading and throwing little dry flies for bluegill. I've done a lot of cool segments over the years. It wouldn't be something I would normally do, but kind of just depends on the situation. But trout fishing, yeah, obviously deer hunting, turkey hunting. It's just a lot throughout the year. 52 shows a year and a couple segments on each week. It's just a lot.
Well, I can imagine just trying to do this is enough for me. So I don't know how you guys do it every week, day in, day out. You're going places to film. What's the craziest episode you've ever done? No matter what it is, it was just I kind of maybe off the wall, just a something that sticks in your mind.
There's one bear hunt that I get asked that question a fair amount, and the one bear hunt always kind of comes the first thing I think about, and it was in the Cadillac area. This was, I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago. Bunch of bears. We had seen 6 or 7 bears throughout the day, and the guy I was hunting with, we were sitting against the blowdown, probably 70 yards from the bait. He was rifle hunting, but we were just sitting in camp chairs, and so these bears, even at 70 yards, you're like, oh, it's a bear, it's right there. You're like, it's cool. He had actually had a big bear come to the bait, and he was kind of being just really selective with his shot. I thought he could have killed it a couple times and never squeezed one off, and it was getting dark, and we're kind of getting ready to wrap up, or at least in my mind, we're getting ready to wrap up. And I hear just the softest branch break. And to my right, and I kind of turn my head over, and I kid you not, this bear, it couldn't have been 5 yards from me the first time I saw it. It was probably like 3 yards, the first time I saw it. So I'm sitting there in a camping chair with a tripod. That's it. I don't have a gun or anything. So I'm like this bear comes to the right, swings around in front of me. I had the camera rolling, I think just out of instinct, because it was pretty dark. I had the camera rolling, but I was like starting to think like, well, if he bluff charges me or something, like I could use a tripod to maybe like, no, give him a good sticker. I'm thinking he's right here. And then he takes like two more steps, and I'm like kind of moving the tripod, like again, more for self-defense than filming. And I'm like, get to about right here, and kaboom, the guy shoots him. I didn't know the guy had seen him. He never said like, I'm going to take him. Are you on him? It wasn't a huge bear. So it was like kind of caught me off guard. It was a decent bear, but it wasn't anything giant. And I mean, it was a 30-06 at 5 feet. I mean, the bear, it almost picked the bear up. It was like laying right there. And I'll never forget that one. Just the encounter, having the bear so close to you on the ground with just nothing between you. And then being so surprised by the guy shooting. I wasn't prepared for that at all. And I actually had it all on camera. So I was like, by the time we like went away, the footage obviously was a little shaky. I jumped pretty good when he shot, but it was there. And that whole experience was like, it was just chaos. And it was at that time, it was a Baldwin tag. So at that time, it took like 15 years to get a tag. It was like a pretty like elusive bear tag. And I'll always forget that one, or always remember that one. That was hard to forget.
Yeah, I could imagine. I would have needed 2 pair of underwear, I think, if that was the situation right there.
It's just funny the thing your mind go through in like a situation like that. Like I know it's a black bear. I know it's not, likely to really harm me, but it's almost dark and we're way too close to it and it doesn't know we're here. So I'm like, but like I'll never forget thinking about the tripod as like a potential, like, yeah, this might stop it. I'm like, but anyway.
You might have came up with the new bear hunting method right there.
Yeah, maybe.
Tripod
I don't know.
Yeah. How many bear camps have you been to over the years?
I've been to quite a few. The only downside with the bear season here in Michigan is it often coincides when I like to go out west to chase elk. They're very similar timings. Part of the reason I haven't drawn my own bear tag is that it's always roughly the same dates. And when I do pull a Michigan bear tag, I want to really do it the right way, and I want to be a part of the whole process. And I just haven't had a year where I felt like I could do everything and be present for it. But I've probably filmed like half a dozen successful bear hunts. I filmed one last year. Yeah, probably about half a dozen, I'd say, something like that.
Okay.
Maybe more. Man, it's hard to remember. I'm saying that I'm remembering all these bears. I'm like, at least half a dozen. Yeah.
Okay. You've been, how long have you been at this? You say like 15 years or something like that?
Yeah. 15 years. Yeah.
Okay. How fast did it fly by?
Pretty crazy, man. I mean, just life in general. I got a 7-year-old. That seems crazy. I mean, when I started working for the show, I was working part-time. I was writing grants for the state of Michigan Department of Corrections when I took the job part-time, and never thought it would be more than like a couple-year thing. And yeah, it's been 15 years, and yeah, no signs of slowing down. Things are still going good. So yeah, pretty wild.
Where do you guys see the show going? Just kind of sticking its own path, or?
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're kind of always evolving, right? That's a different day and age than it was. I mean, I started the first, Michigan Outdoors Facebook page when I started working for the show. It didn't, it wasn't even Facebook then. So from then to like now, the most difficult thing is people want so much content. And like you're doing 52 shows a year is already a lot. And then you're trying to do additional social media stuff. And now like, oh, you need to be doing YouTube shorts and you need to be doing all this stuff. And it's like, well, we're a pretty small crew. And the 52 shows alone on top of the advertising stuff you have to do to keep the show going is a ton of work. So anything extra is just difficult to accomplish. So trying to navigate that and figure out, how that needs to look going forward. I mean, that's probably the biggest hurdle, but I think the need for, authentic storytelling is still going to be there. I think people want to hear other people's stories. It's relevant. It's on a lot of places, it's on bodies of water that other guys fish. It's not like watching some guy fish in a flying camp in Ontario that you're never going to go to. It's like, oh, I know that spot on Detroit River. Um, so I think that helps us, and we have a very loyal, base of people that watch the show. So we've been fortunate that way. But yeah, it's kind of hard to think about the future with how fast the show moves. It's like, today's Tuesday. We just wrapped up this week's episode that'll air Thursday night. I've got shoots tomorrow, Thursday, Friday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, come home, leave for Colorado. That's my schedule the next 2 weeks. So, I got to write an article for the Greenstone Partners magazine somewhere in that too. So it's hard to give a lot of forethought to like what's next year going to look like. It's like, well, it's next week going to look like,
Okay. Are you heading to Colorado for elk then?
Yeah. Yeah.
All right.
Kind of an annual, actually, I'm glad you brought that up because this will be our 11th year in a row going to Colorado, me and one buddy, and then we've kind of rotated who else has kind of come along that. But he's a conservation officer, so he's kind of in the same boat for rifle season as I am. We generally don't hunt. So I think we kind of started telling our wives early on, like, this is our deer camp. So we go out west every year pretty much without any grief. I've got 3 kids and I'm going out there for 8 days of hunting, a couple days of driving. So, but that's kind of like our thing every year. We go out there and it's, we try hard to kill elk, but a big part of it is the camping and out there. It's a little more, less, I don't know, like here, camps are more enjoyable here than what we're doing out there because we hoof it pretty hard and don't have as much fun, but always enjoy the grind together and that camaraderie. And there are no cell phones, no signal. It's just the satellite phone to check in. And it's a good reset and kind of good for me before we come back because September is crazy work wise. So as soon as I get back, it's, bang, 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 bang for really until you get through deer season.
Okay. Have you done any of the elk stuff up in Atlanta there for content?
Every year but one.
Okay.
Last year was the first year I missed. The opening day of the late elk season was the day my last son was scheduled to be born. So couldn't be up there for that. That's the first time I haven't gone up for either the early or the late. Most of the time I go up for the late season. It's a lot easier to film. You get a little snow, just better content. But yeah, pretty much every single year, go up there and do that. Kind of a different, very different from out west elk hunting, but cool in its own right.
What's your favorite hunt that you've been on for that?
Ooh, that's a good question. Can't say if I think of a favorite one, but I remember there's an experience that always sticks out to me on all the hunts I've ever done up there. So I was one of the guides. There's quite a few of these Northern Michigan guides, which some of the guys really know what they're doing. And most of the guys are just guides because they have access to private property that kind of allows them to take people out. One of the guides that I know up there, his daughter had drew a cow tag. So he let me know she drew this tag. I think she's like 11 or something. So I go up there to film her do this cow tag, and it's like go into this section. There's a bunch of elk. We'd cut tracks in the morning, and we're going in there, get her all set up, and it starts breaking day, and I see an elk coming. And like, oh, here comes one, we kind of get all ready, and it's like, it's a bull. Like odd to be disappointed, but she's only got a cow tag, and it starts getting closer and closer, and it's like, oh my, it's a huge bull, 7x7. This thing walks by us like 30 yards, snow falling, a giant Michigan 7x7 just walked right by us, and like we were all just like kind of jaw dropped, like no one had a bull tag. We were sitting here with a cow tag, and it was the only elk that came through. And like, but I'll never forget it because it was like this peaceful, perfect morning. This giant bull walks through, and it's one of those things where it's just like I might not ever see something like that again. And here we are with a tag, just not the right one. And she was all excited. She killed a cow the next day. But I always remember that one. But a lot of those hunts are they're tricky. I don't know how much you've been a part of them, but
nothing. I've no experience at all.
Yeah, it's kind of a rodeo up there. So what happens is like in the late season, a lot of the elk are on private, and you get people that have access to, like, how it is. We're in Michigan, so there's a bunch of small parcels,
Mm-hmm.
So this guide has permission to these 3 parcels, and this guide has the next 3 or whatever. So then the herd gets pushed off of one, and one gets shot out of the other, and it's more chasing them with a truck than anything else. Following the herd from section to section. Then you're getting out of the truck and going in the section and trying to find them, kind of thing. But I mean, you can do it different ways. That's just the typical Michigan elk hunt. That's how most guys do it. But you can certainly like go into the pigeon on foot, cut tracks, and I know guys that have done it that way too. So, but
Okay.
yeah, it's kind of a rodeo.
All right. What's an episode that you have never done that you'd want to do for Michigan Outdoors?
Isle Royal.
Okay.
I've never done it. We one of our freelancers that works with us, Gabe Van Wormer, he shot a segment up there like 5 or 6 years ago, actually for as a part of a different show, but shared some footage with us. They have some really cool offshore brook trout fishing there, and actually in the spring they hit some big walleye. It's very unique fishery, and I've never actually been on the island, so I'd like to do the Isle Royal thing. I'd like to go up there for like a week and fish on the outskirts, and then do some actual camping inside the island. So that's one I've never done. That it's just a lot of. I mean, and to get all the way up to Copper Harbor, you're talking almost 10 hours for me. It starts to become a pretty long work trip. But someday I'll get up there.
Yeah, what a beautiful area it is up there. Have you done much in the Keweenaw up there?
I've done a lot in the Keweenaw. I got a good buddy that lives up there, so I've done a lot of different fishing things. I just haven't taken a bunch. He goes out to Isle Royal a lot. I would go with him if I did the trip. I just haven't been able to set aside. I honestly would have to do 10 days to probably go up there, get across, spend a few days fishing. You got to have a few days for weather because it's Lake Superior, and you could be stuck there for days potentially if it gets rough. So, yeah, I'd like to do it. Just maybe next year. I don't know.
There's always next year. That's what I keep telling myself. There's always next year. The next year comes and goes. You were saying about Baldwin unit and 15 points. Is that changed?
Yeah, it's about 10 points now.
Oh, that's good. That's good to know because I got 10 points, and that's the unit I want to hunt in.
Yeah, okay. You're about right on it. They increased the number of tags there a few years ago, and that dropped the point total. And plus, I think they're getting a few less people applying for bear points than they used to, so that's kind of changing it too. But I'm in that no man's land now, where I think I have 16 something because I was holding off for Baldwin and never went, and then it dropped, and now I'm like, I mean, the only one above that is Drummond. So that's the only one I'm like, I don't know. Maybe at this point I should just save them and go to Drummond and try to do something really unique. I just want to shoot a Michigan bear. I'm not worried about shooting a whole bunch. But so I got to decide. I got to take a year off elk hunting, or at least move my elk trip around, make it work one of these years.
So you do the elk thing every year then?
Yeah, this will be our 11th year in a row. Yeah.
Okay. So is that now? You're going to Colorado. Do you go to the same place every time, or do you guys kind of bounce around? Oh, okay.
Yeah, we bounced around. We've done some other out west trips, too, but we try to do at least one elk trip every year. And so we've gone to Colorado 11 years. We have a bunch of points for Wyoming and Utah. Just haven't, honestly, like this year we wanted to do the Wyoming thing. I just didn't have the brain power to sit down and really explore where to go. We've got a couple good spots in Colorado that we kind of already know and have killed some bulls in, and so it was more of an ease thing this year to go back there. But yeah, we'll be exploring some other states soon for elk, but mostly Colorado so far.
Is that got your heart as the elk? Is that your favorite?
Yeah. I still think
I won't hold you to it. I won't hold you to it.
I still think whitetail is my favorite just because I spent a big chunk of my life chasing whitetail, but I love elk, and I really like mule deer. The mule deer are so much different than whitetail. The first time I hunted them 4 or 5 years ago, I was like kind of enamored because they just behave so much differently. I'm like, I know whitetail, and I start chasing these muleys around there, making me look pretty foolish. And I was like, well, I don't know mule deer, so it took me a little while to learn those. I killed a couple nice bucks out west doing that, and so I've got a little itch for mule deer too, but. Yeah, I think it's more, it's kind of like trout. It's about where elk live as much as anything else, And then they're like the size of a horse, which is a bonus,
Bigger target. I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I'll let you go here in a second, but I just one more question. I'd like a good hunting story from you, personal one of yours, whatever comes to mind, your favorite. It doesn't even have to be about deer. It can be, but your most favorite, memorable. It could even be a fishing story.
Boy, give me just a sec. I mean, I'm running through some cool deer ones. I mean,
We can
guess
do a couple too or two if you want. I mean,
I'll default to kind of an easy one. I mean, last year in general was like, it's kind of a crazy time in my life. We're building a house. My wife was fully pregnant and had a very difficult pregnancy towards the end. So like there was a lot of October hunts that ended early and things that like planned on going out didn't go out and all that stuff. But I killed 2 bucks in a span of 6 days. And the one was actually one's right here. This was the oldest buck I've ever killed. This is a 5.5-year-old that basically everybody in the section had some experience with. I killed him first. That I did film for the show. But that buck was pretty cool. So I've never had a buck that I knew was 5.5. I mean, it's pretty rare, you know, around here to have an old buck. So this buck, as a 3.5-year-old, hung out here, and I found his sheds and was excited to see what he'd be as a 4.5. As a 4.5, he was huge. He's like 155, super heavy 10-point. Well, the neighbor to my north wounded him with a bow pretty early, and he disappeared. I got pictures of him wounded, but he disappeared after that. And the 3 neighbors, we all communicate pretty well and share trail cam pictures. And everybody's like, have you seen the Big Ten? Have you seen the Big Ten? Nothing. Gun season rolls through, nothing. No one's seen him, no pictures. And it was a high shoulder shot, not a typically fatal shot with a bow or one that would slow him down. Well, he shows up on the last day of the second gun season, and my neighbor to the south misses him. So he had disappeared for like a month. No one's seen him, no pictures. Shows up randomly, and he misses him on the last day of season, and he comes running into ours. So now all of a sudden, we're all like kind of excited. We're like, he made it through. Like somehow this, you know, he made it through. And so he's going to be 5.5. He's the neighbor found his sheds. He was like 154 last year, is what we figured. So he found his sheds, and so coming into the season, we were all like, is he going to be 170? I mean, he was 155. But how big could he be? This thing's going to be this giant 10-point. When he shows back up, and he's super nice buck, big frame, but he's like 130. And I had my heart set on him before I couldn't have cared less what he scored when he showed up. Like now I was going on year number 3 of history with this buck. So I started chasing him through all October, and I had so many close calls with him with a bow in October. And actually, once I could have for sure shot him without the camera, and another time I probably could have shot him without the camera, and I didn't shoot him. So then we get to like late October, and he disappears again. And it goes like 6 or 7 days without seeing him. And I'm like, and I was getting it last year, I was getting pictures of him every day. And I'm like, he's going to disappear again and be gone. He must go somewhere. And I'm thinking I totally screwed that up. And then November 6th rolled around, and I hear this deer in this big bedding area, and he was letting out the deepest, loudest grunts. I mean, like, brrr. He's like super long, tending grunts. Shows up, and it's him. I get an arrow in him and kill him that morning. And like kind of the final chapter to that story, you know, the one neighbor wounded him, the other neighbor missed him, and then I ended up killing him, you know, the year later. And he's this super old buck, big old heavy head, dressed out close to 200 pounds. And, you know, the first week of November, big deer too. So then I that was great. Season's already a win. I'm good. I very rarely shoot more than 1 buck on our place down here. Well, then like immediately after after I killed him, this other buck starts showing up pretty regularly. And this is the biggest antlered buck I've ever had a chance to chase. 4.5, but he's big.
Okay.
So I start hunting him, and my wife can already kind of like, she can sense that I'm like really wanting to hunt it. He was there. Like he was coming out to the same bean field, chasing does pretty much every night. And she's like not feeling good. And I'm like doing like, I just spent like a month chasing this other bug. I'm trying not to be a horrible husband. And like, finally she's like, just go for it. You know, she's like, I'll figure it out. Just do what you need to do. And it took me 5 days, and I hunted every day, or had hunted every morning, every night, moving stands. I cut 2 saddle hunts trying to figure him out. He just kept coming out to this big bean field, and he wouldn't leave the center. So like you had to kill him where he stepped out, because then he wouldn't leave it. Well, so then November 13th, I ended up sitting in this old gun blind, like 5 feet off the ground, and it's totally janky, like not safe setup for anybody. And I shot him that night at 25 yards. So, and
out of the blind.
I was sitting on the platform of the blind. I wasn't even
Oh,
inside.
okay.
Yeah, it was full of mice. I opened the doors, full of mice. I was like, I'll just stand here. So I'm like leaning against the, blind. So kill him. It's November 13th. And so now I've tagged out the first time in like a very long time on, 155-inch buck and 130-inch buck that's 5.5 years old. And then it was 2 days after that, I take my grandpa out and he kills that buck. And it's like, in a span of like a week, it was like, wow, that might be the biggest buck I ever kill. Who knows? We've never had a 150 around here to chase until 2 years ago. It was the first time we'd ever seen one here. Like I just killed a 150-inch buck with a bow. I just killed 5.5 with a bow, and I just got to sit with my then 88-year-old grandpa and film him shoot a buck. Like the whole like, I don't think I would got to be like super present in the moment because again, like we had all this other stuff going on, and it was like as soon as I was not at deer camp, we were right back to real life. But I don't know if I'll ever top that like week of hunting. It was pretty incredible.
That's awesome. That's a story right there. I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Well, Jordan, I appreciate your time. We've been on about 45 minutes here. Where can guys find you? Obviously, they all know you're on Michigan Outdoors, but if they want to follow along and see where you're at.
Yep. So we got every show airs every week on PBS. We also have all of our shows on YouTube. They come out Thursday night on there too every week. And we're trying to, like I said, put some additional content on YouTube as we can. And then, Michigan Outdoors TV on Facebook and Instagram. And just trying to keep it moving and keep providing new content. And for me, coming into the fall, it's the most exciting time. I mean, I know I'm going to be doing some bird hunting and some duck hunting, and I'm going to be on an elk hunt later, and I'm doing all this stuff, and like half of it's work. But this is really a fun time of the year to be working. So I'll get quite a bit of hunting in myself, and then just tag along with other people. Like, upland hunting is a great example. I've never really upland hunted much myself, but I always film a couple. And I feel like I know enough about upland hunting. Like I get excited for it, even though I hardly ever do it. I might shoot a grouse or two a year. So excited for those experiences coming into the fall. That's the best time of year if you're a sportsman here in Michigan, that's for sure.
All right. Well, I'll tell you what, I appreciate you coming on. Appreciate your time. One last question. Am I going to see you at bow camp this year?
I hope so. I was still waiting to hear a for sure date from Kevin. He said he was looking at a couple different weekends, and I'm going to try to make it work at least for a day or two if I can. I've got to figure that out. So I hope so. Okay. I'd like to get back up there.
Yeah, sounds good, man. Well, I appreciate it, and we'll chat soon.
All right, talk to you soon.